Kids must experience danger. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin from ChildWise. Welcome to my channel, ChildWise Chatter, where you can learn to bring more conscious awareness to your role as a parent. So I've got something to say. Kids must experience danger. All right, now don't get me wrong. We are not going to throw our kids out in front of oncoming traffic or put them into situations that they can't handle. But learning to manage risk, learning to assess risk is a skill that takes time to form. And it's a skill that we really want our kids to have had a fair bit of practice in by the time they reach adolescence and they're starting to head out on their own. So to learn this skill, children must have exposure to danger. Now, we want our kids to have lots of practice in this skill with us around, first of all, so that we can support them. Now, the trick with this is that we want to know kind of when to jump in and when to stand back. So to do this kind of well, we need to know what's going on for us. And I've talked about this in other videos. I've talked about the great question to ask in any situation is what's going inside of me. So the first thing to do when you're noticing your child kind of approaching what could be a risky situation or a potentially dangerous situation, just to do a very quick check-in. I mean, obviously you're going to know if they're in physical danger right in that minute, absolutely jump in. But just some situations are a bit grey, so just doing a quick check-in. Okay, what's going on in me? Are there fears there? Are there memories coming up for me of something that happened to me that's making me kind of want to really jump in before I actually need to? Now, reflective conversation can also be a fantastic tool for supporting this skill development. So when something does happen where, you know, maybe you did need to jump in and kind of help them in a dangerous situation, you have a chat about it afterwards. Okay, what did that feel like, you know, when you thought you were going to get hurt? You know, because they will be really, especially if they're little, they'll be really connected to their body and they'll notice the sensations. They should be able to remember the sensations that were there. It might be like a fluttering in the tummy. It might be like a tension in their body. So really drawing their attention to this, because that's what you want them to keep connected to as they move through their life. Now, children, when they're really small, so under 7, their ability to think forward is really minimal. And again, when your child becomes a teen, the prefrontal cortex goes under development once again, shut down for renovations. And it's this area of the brain that gives them the ability to control their impulses, assess risks, and empathize and solve problems. So with their under 7, we really want to try to be around as much as possible to support them through this. After they're 7, if they've had that support, they're going to start to have those skills to do that for themselves. So our job as parents is really to support learning this skill, learning to be able to assess and manage risk, not to stop them being exposed to danger. They can't learn these skills, they can't practice these skills if they're not exposed to danger. And it is an impossible task to keep them from danger throughout their lives. So there's 3 things that I really want to invite you to consider when you're in these situations with your kids. First of all, make it safe to make mistakes. So we kind of want our kids to fail. We want them to kind of stumble and trip and fall. And, you know, sometimes they are going to get hurt. You know, an example is kids that, you know, especially for boys that get older and they might like to go outside and they might like to have a pocket knife, for example. A lot of fear can come up about that. Oh my God, they're going to cut themselves. And yes, as they're learning to use that tool, they may cut themselves, they may get hurt, but we can assess that, like the value in that for them as a really natural consequence for their learning how to manage certain tools. So we kind of don't want to keep them wrapped up in cotton wool and not exposed to those dangerous things. The other thing I want to invite you to is to really work on your values as a family. So a good way to do that, if you're co-parenting with someone, if you're there's two adults in the home, agree what they are for your family first of all, and then share that with your children and work on that as a process of learning, so that can serve as a real foundation for later in life when there's some kind of morally risky situations coming up. They've got those firm values to draw on as their foundation and they're really clear. The third piece is that when they do make a mistake, when they've done something that, you know, maybe has caused harm to themselves or someone else, this is as they kind of get older, just remembering that there's probably going to be shame for them around that. They're probably going to know that what they did wasn't ideal. So knowing that that shame that they experience is a really kind of good and natural consequence. We don't then need to layer that shame with punishment, where we're sending a message that you are bad. It's really that choice was not great. The shame that they experience is already telling them that, so we want to just support them through that with that reflective conversation. So I hope this video is helpful just in starting to think about, okay, how do I teach this skill? How do I support my kids to learn this skill about managing risk to really set them up for life ahead? Thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see you next time. Bye.